Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Assembly Ways and Means Senate Finance Joint Subcommittee on Public Safety, Natural Resources, and Transportation. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Senator Goycochea. Senator Harris. Senator Wynn. Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Brown-May. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen. And Chair Watts.
And I am here. Thank you. Please mark Assemblyman Hafen present when he arrives. Members, we have 15 budgets to close this morning. Thankfully, some of them are staff recommendation closes. But with that, we are going to get right into it. We're going to start with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. Whenever staff is ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. For the record, Justin Luna, Fiscal Analysis Division with the Legislative Council Bureau. As the chair mentioned, this morning we'll be closing a total of 15 budgets, 6 of which were heard by the subcommittee on February 14th, and the other 9 are staff recommended closed budgets. The first budget to be closed is the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, beginning on page 3 of your packet. As a reminder, the agency is exempt from the State Budget Act and submits its proposed budget directly to the legislature. Therefore, the following major closing issues reflect the agency's requested budget and are not included in the executive budget. This budget has 4 major closing issues as requested by the agency. The first major closing issue requests general fund appropriations to fund Nevada's 1/3 share of salary increases for TRPA staff in each year of the biennium. The agency originally requested a 5% increase for each year, but during the hearing, the subcommittee asked about the 8% and 4% increases over the biennium as recommended by the governor for state employees. And the agency confirmed that the intent is to have TRPA employees receive the same cost of living increases as state employees, which would help the agency address recruitment and retention challenges primarily related to the lack of affordable housing in the Lake Tahoe area. Based on that discussion, the decision for the subcommittee at the bottom of page 4 represents the salary increases recommended by the governor for state employees, which reflects a 10% increase in fiscal year 2024, adjusted up from the 8% to add the additional 2% for non-collective bargaining staff, and an additional 4% increase in fiscal year 2025, funded with general fund appropriations for Nevada's 1/3 share. So the decision for the subcommittee, again on page 4, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $261,310 in fiscal year 2024 and $376,286 in fiscal year 2025 to fund Nevada's share of annual salary increases for TRPA staff of 10% in fiscal year 2024 and an additional 4% in fiscal year 2025, based on the governor's recommendations for state employees' salary adjustments, contingent on approval of statewide cost of living adjustments in the 2023 pay bill.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Chair Watts, I move that we recommend approval of the general fund appropriations of $261,310 in fiscal year 2024 and $376,286 in fiscal year 2025 to fund Nevada's share of annual salary increases for TRPA staff of 10% in fiscal year 2024 and an additional 4% in fiscal year 2025 based on the governor's recommendations for state employee salary adjustments, contingent on approval of statewide cost of living adjustments in the 2023 pay bill.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna for the record. The second major closing issue requests general fund appropriations of $500,000 over the biennium to continue the digital conversion of the agency's hard copy files and records. The agency received a one-time ARPA allocation of $250,000 in fiscal year 2023 to begin this project. During the budget hearing, the agency indicated this effort would improve customer service by providing access to the agency's records online, and that the general fund appropriations would be used to help fund the scanning contracts as well as staff time needed to prepare the files for scanning. The decision for the subcommittee on page 5, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $250,000 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to fund Nevada's share to continue digital conversion of agency records in the upcoming biennium?
Thank you very much. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair, I would move to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $250,000 in each year of the 2023-2025 biennium to fund Nevada's share to continue digital conversion of agency records in the upcoming biennium.
Thank you. I have a motion from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna for the record. Major issue number 3 begins on page 5 of your closing packet, which requests general fund appropriations of $733,156 over the biennium to restore Nevada's share of state funding to the 1/3 contribution specified in the bi-state compact. During the budget hearing, the agency confirmed that Nevada's share had been budgeted below the 1/3 contribution level outlined in the compact for the majority of the last 15 years. The agency also emphasized the funding contributions in the compact as an important measure of the collaboration between the two states in their shared stewardship to protect the lake and its resources. According to the agency, the additional funding would be used to address 2 key issues. One, to enhance the agency's retirement offerings for its staff, since the employees do not participate in either of the state's retirement systems and do not receive Social Security benefits. And 2, to fund increased costs for the agency's environmental monitoring and research contracts. The decision for the subcommittee on page 7, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $366,578 in each year of the 2023 biennium to restore Nevada's share of state funding to the 1/3 contribution specified in the bi-state compact?
Thank you very much, Mr. Luna. Members, any questions on this item? Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just clarification, this is not in the governor's budget?
That is correct.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Senator Goycochea.
Again, even though this is not in the governor's budget, clearly that 1/3 contribution that we've always historically paid, and we're in arrears to California significantly over that. This is something we do all the time. It's the first thing we cut back in the event we're short of money, but I think this year we can afford it.
Thank you for that, Senator. I agree. As we learned during the hearing and with some of the background materials, we have not always met that share because we've relied on our neighboring state to help pick up the tab. And I agree with this budget situation. It's time that we uphold our responsibility that we agreed to. Chair Harris.
Thank you, Chair Watts. I'll just also note that while this gets us to the point where we are again paying our fair share, it does not, in fact, catch us up from the arrears. And we actually still will owe our neighboring state a couple of bucks. And so I look forward to a time where we consider paying the full tab. With that, Chair, if you're ready to accept a motion. All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and move that the subcommittee recommend approval of the general fund appropriations of $366,578 in each year of the 2023-2025 biennium to restore Nevada's share of state funding to the 1/3 contribution specified in the bi-state compact.
Thank you. I have a motion from Vice Chair Harris, a second, or a chair from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries.
Justin Luna, again for the record. Continuing on page 7 is the fourth and final major closing issue for this budget, which requests general fund appropriations of $676,500 over the biennium to fund 1/3 of the Tahoe Transportation District's administrative costs, which are not fully supported by other funding sources. The Tahoe Transportation District was established as part of the Bi-State Compact to provide transit operations for the Lake Tahoe region in close partnership with TRPA and to help coordinate the various transportation partners. The agency provided additional information about the overall funding framework to support transportation services in the Lake Tahoe Basin and explained that the Tahoe Transportation District does not currently charge a fee for rides in an effort to retain ridership and provide financial relief following a decline in transit use during the pandemic. The agency indicated the requested funding would be used to support administrative costs, including district staff time, which may allow the Tahoe Transportation District to use existing grants or other funding to go towards operations to enhance transit services in the area. Please note, if the subcommittee recommends approval of this request, to fiscal staff's knowledge, this would be the first time the legislature has directly appropriated funding to support Tahoe Transportation District administrative costs, and as such, may wish to provide direction to the TRPA as to whether this funding should be considered one-time or ongoing for purposes of future budget requests. The decision for the subcommittee on page 8. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $330,000 in fiscal year 2024 and $346,500 in fiscal year 2025 to fund a 33% share of the otherwise unallocable portion of the administrative costs of the Tahoe Transportation District? If the subcommittee recommends approval of general fund appropriations to support the Tahoe Transportation District's administrative costs, the subcommittee may wish to provide the TRPA guidance on whether these funds should be considered one-time or ongoing for purposes of future budget requests.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luna. Members, questions on this item? Assemblywoman Dickman.
Just a quick comment. I would really like to see it be a one-time. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments from members? Senator Goycochea.
I'm sorry, I didn't really hear Assemblywoman Dickman's question, but we are considering this as a one-shot then. Or at least in my mind, I think we don't know what's coming in the next cycle, so I would prefer it be treated as a one-shot.
Thank you. This is the first time that this has come before us, so we can make this time and see what TRPA comes back to us with. But I think if this, obviously I was just up at the lake this weekend. Transportation needs are significant, and so they come back next biennium, and this seems like investment in this is something that is needed and that we're going to need to contribute our fair share to on an ongoing basis. Then as you know, Senator, we have had some recurring one-shots that we've eventually asked to be built into the budget. So I'm fine with doing it as a one-time right now, and then the next legislature can look at potentially down the road reassessing that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I won't be here the next time, but I'll let you guys deal with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, any additional questions? Vice Chair Anderson.
Thank you. So I also wanted to make a clarification, or more of a question, looking through the background documents. I believe the congressional and California funds are ongoing. Is that correct, or are they also only one-shots? Do we know?
Justin Luna, for the record, I am unsure as to whether the California funding for the transportation services in Tahoe are one-time or ongoing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, anything else? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair Watts, I would move for the subcommittee to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $330,000 in fiscal year '24 and $346,500 in fiscal year '25 to fund the 33% share of the otherwise unallocable portion of the administrative costs of the Tahoe Transportation District, with a note to the Tahoe Transportation District that while we will consider this a one-shot here, we would in fact like to see it in the base budget if they intend to have this moving forward.
I've got a motion from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna, again for the record. There are no other closing items for this budget, and if, with your permission, we can move on to the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources.
Yes, let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you again, Justin Luna, for the record. The first budget for DCNR starts on page 17 of your closing packet. Budget 4150, DCNR Administration. This budget was heard by the subcommittee on February 14th. There are no major closing issues. There are two other closing items, including one with recommended Appropriations Act language to allow amounts to be transferred as needed between fiscal years with the approval of IFC. The top of page 18, fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 and 2 be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair Watts, I would move that other closing items 1 and 2 be closed as recommended by the governor and that we give staff authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. I have a motion from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Thank you. Justin Luna, for the record. The next budget on page 19, Water Conservation and Infrastructure Initiative, Budget 4159. This is the $100 million in ARPA funds approved at the October 2022 IFC to focus on the long-term reliability of the state's water resources. At the time of approval, the IFC requested a quarterly report from the department to get regular updates on the progress of the initiative. And the one major closing issue is the continuation of the coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds to support the initiative's ongoing work. There are 2 full-time positions dedicated to the program, and the department created a technical advisory committee to develop priorities, review project eligibility and timelines, and then evaluate and rank submissions. In request for follow-up, the department provided details on the membership of the technical advisory committee. The top of page 21, the decision for the subcommittee. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of Federal American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds of $49.8 million in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to continue funding for the water conservation and infrastructure budget as recommended by the governor.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions on this item? Senator Goycochea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to make sure the way we're doing this, technically the 49 million then would be deemed to be allocated. So again, because it is ARPA funding, we want to make sure it is allocated by the 2024 deadline, even though it wouldn't be expended.
Thank you. Would staff like to chime in on that? That the inclusion in the budget would count as allocation of the full amount?
Justin Luna, for the record, that's staff understanding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm just trying to understand. So we, during IFC, approved the roughly 100 million just blanketly, correct? And then, but what we're doing here is we're saying that it'd be about 50 million each year. Would they still have the flexibility to spend the 100 million either year, or are we limiting when they can spend the 50 million each?
Thank you for that, Assemblyman Hafen. I'll ask staff to help in answering that, although I think my understanding is the agency wishes to try and get this out the door as quickly as they can, do so effectively and responsibly. I believe that that we could make adjustments in that direction. I'm almost certain that we can, if they do not get funds out the door, that can be balanced forward into the next fiscal year. But would staff like to add any additional clarification?
Thank you, Justin Luna, for the record. Yes, that is correct. And the agency has the ability to reconcile authority between fiscal years as needed.
And just for clarification, if they wanted to spend the whole 100 million the first year, they'd have the flexibility to do that?
Justin Luna, again, for the record, the agency would need to, I believe in the current state fiscal year, they have the full $100 million in authority. For future state fiscal years, they would need to submit a work program to request an adjustment to the authority. But yes, they have the opportunity to do that if needed.
Thank you very much. Members, any other questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair Watts, I'd like to move that the subcommittee recommend approval of the Federal American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds of I'm having trouble with numbers this morning, $49.8 million in each year of the 2023-2025 biennium to continue funding for the water conservation and infrastructure budget as recommended by the governor.
Thank you. Yes, it's Monday, and even when the words are right there on the paper, it's not as easy as it looks. I've got a motion from Chair Harris. I've got a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries, and I will just say we look forward to getting ongoing updates of the efforts to deploy these funds from the department. We'll move on to the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are no other closing items for this budget, so we'll move on to the next budget, Conservation Districts Program, Budget 4151. This budget was also heard by the subcommittee on February 14th, and it supports Nevada's 28 locally elected conservation districts as part of a statewide conservation program. There are two major closing issues for this budget. The first begins on page 23 and recommends additional general fund appropriations of $14,000 in each year of the biennium to increase the annual grant allocations provided to each conservation district by $500 for a total of $4,500 per district per year. In response to a request for follow-up, the agency provided a history of payments to the districts along with a map and details about the 28 conservation districts in the state. On page 24, the decision for the subcommittee, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of additional general fund appropriations of $14,000 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to increase the annual grant allocations provided to the 28 conservation districts from $4,000 to $4,500 as recommended by the governor.
Thank you. Members, any discussion on this item? One thing I'd note is that, during our hearing on this, we heard that funds had originally been at 5,000 and before we had to make some cutbacks, and considering how little in this budgetary cycle it takes for us to restore them, I think that is something that I would be interested in, something that would be worthwhile, especially to the more active districts, and might even help some of the smaller districts pick up their activities. So, Senator Goycochea.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, along those same lines, and I agree, as we move forward and in the future, if we look at enhancing that even beyond it, I would recommend we actually maybe do it on a grant type. Some of these districts can expend the money and get a lot more out of it than others. And so again, this 4,500, I think it helps everybody get even, but in the future, as you look at maybe increasing that funding, maybe more on a competitive grant type thing, good projects, there are clearly districts that could use $10,000 and really make it happen. And other districts will just continue to meet and go along. So with that,
Thank you.
For future.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that, and I'll just ask the department to jot that down and think about it moving forward, because I do think that there are clearly different capacity levels for different conservation districts. We want to support their work across the state and their growth, but I think the senator's point is well noted. So, any other comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that the subcommittee recommend approval of the governor's recommendation of $14,000 in fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025 to increase the funding to each of the 28 conservation districts to $4,500. Additionally, Chair, I would move that the subcommittee recommend approval for an additional $14,000 in general fund appropriations for fiscal year 2025 to increase fiscal year 2025 funding for each of the 28 conservation districts to $5,000.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Assemblyman Hafen.
Just for clarification on how the math works, we're going to 28,000 for the biennium, and that does mathematically add up 5,000 per district?
Thank you for that. So it would be 14,000 to get them from 4,000 to 4,500 in the next fiscal year, and then a total of 28,000 from where we are currently to get them to $5,000 in the second fiscal year. So it's a step up to get to where they originally were by the second year of the biennium.
It's Monday.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions from members of the committee? Senator Goycochea.
But that is actually another 14,000 above GovRec at this point.
That is correct. As my fellow chair likes to say, budget test.
A good program. I'll go there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Justin Luna, again for the record. Second major closing issue recommends additional general fund appropriations of $10,000 in each year of the biennium to increase the sage grouse competitive grant awards available to the conservation districts throughout the state. The base budget component funds sage grouse competitive grants of $65,000 per year, and this recommendation would increase the total funding for awards from $65,000 to $75,000 per fiscal year, restoring the funding to the 2019 legislatively approved amount. The decision for the subcommittee on page 25. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of additional general fund appropriations of $10,000 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to increase the sage grouse competitive grant awards available to the conservation districts throughout the state, as recommended by the governor.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair, I would move that we recommend approval of additional general fund appropriations of $10,000 in each year of the 2023-2025 biennium to increase the sage grouse competitive grant awards available to the conservation districts throughout the state as recommended by the governor.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Harris, a second by Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna, for the record. There is one other closing item in this budget, 4151. Fiscal staff recommends other closing item 1 be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Members, any questions on the other closing items? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair Watts, I would move that other closing item 1 be closed as recommended by the governor and that fiscal staff have the authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. I have a motion from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna, again for the record. Now we'll move into the budgets for the Division of Environmental Protection. The first two were heard at the budget hearing on February 14th. Budget 3185 is the air quality budget within the division. It begins on page 27 of your closing packet and has two major closing issues. The first major closing issue recommends additional revenue to reclassify two positions. Decision Unit E805 reclassifies a vacant environmental scientist 4 position to a professional engineer supervisor. And Decision Unit E806 reclassifies a filled staff associate engineer 2 position to a professional engineer. During the budget hearing, the agency indicated the reclassifications would assist with the division's greenhouse gas emissions reporting, resulting in a more timely reporting process as much of the data received from the federal EPA has a significant delay. The decision for the subcommittee on page 28. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of $84,417 comprised of federal funds, fees, and settlement funds over the 2023-25 biennium to fund increased personnel costs resulting from the reclassification of 2 positions as recommended by the governor, contingent on the approval of the reclassification from the Division of Human Resource Management?
Thank you very much. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
I'd move that the subcommittee recommend approval of $84,417, which is comprised of several types of funds over the 2023-2025 biennium to fund the increased personnel costs resulting in the reclassification of 2 positions as recommended by the governor, and we would make that contingent on approval of the reclassification from the Division of Human Resources Management.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Justin Luna, for the record. Second major closing issue recommends additional fee revenue to purchase high-resolution satellite imagery. During the budget hearing, the agency explained the benefits of the high-resolution satellite imagery as it relates to the Clean Air Act administered by the federal EPA. The primary purpose of the high-resolution satellite imagery is to effectively analyze exceptional air quality incidents in coordination with the division's existing air quality monitoring network to show when events have a significant impact on the state. Decision for the subcommittee, page 29 Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of additional fee revenue totaling $101,100 over the 2023-25 biennium for the purchase of high-resolution satellite imagery to monitor air quality as recommended by the governor?
Thank you very much. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that the subcommittee recommend approval of additional fee revenue totaling $101,100 over the 2023-2025 biennium for the purchase of high-resolution satellite imagery to monitor air quality as recommended by the governor.
Thank you. I have a motion from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna for the record. And there are 4 other closing items. Fiscal staff recommends all other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that all closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and that staff have authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna for the record. The next budget closing for the Division of Environmental Protection, also heard at the budget hearing on February 14th. Budget 3187 is the Materials Management and Corrective Action Budget. Begins on page 31 of your closing packet, has 4 major closing issues. Major closing issue number 1 recommends additional funding in fiscal year 2024, funded with fees transferred in from the hazardous waste management budget to support ongoing environmental cleanup efforts at the Anaconda mine site located in Lyon County. The additional amount would go to fund the expected state cost share of the closure of the first phase of the cleanup, which provide total authority of $1.2 million in fiscal year 2024 and $535,149 in fiscal year 2025. During the budget hearing, the agency stated the work for Phase 1 is expected to conclude in 2024, and the payments for the state's 7.8% cost share associated with Phase 1, also known as the orphan share of the project, are expected to continue through 2025 due to the billing cycles, which would then be the end of the state's cost share. The agency also indicated construction for the whole site is expected to be done in 2029, inclusive of phases 2 and 3, but again, the state will not have a cost share for those phases. The decision for the subcommittee at the top of page 33. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of additional funding of $634,851 in fiscal year 2024, funded with transfers from the hazardous waste management budget to support ongoing environmental cleanup efforts at the Anaconda mine site as recommended by the governor?
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair Watts, I would move that the subcommittee recommend approval of the additional funding of $634,851 in fiscal year 2024, funded with transfers from the hazardous waste management budget to support ongoing environmental cleanup efforts at the Anaconda mine site as recommended by the governor.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Justin Luna, again for the record. Major closing issue number 2 recommends additional revenue from various sources, including federal grant funds and budgetary transfers, to reclassify 2 positions in the Bureau of Corrective Actions. Decision Unit E805 reclassifies a vacant Administrative Assistant 2 position to a Management Analyst 1. And Decision Unit E806 reclassifies a Management Analyst 2 position to a Management Analyst 4. During the budget hearing, the agency clarified that the recommended reclassifications were to account for the increase in scope, complexity, and responsibility in the duties of the positions. The decision for the subcommittee, the top of page 34, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of additional revenue totaling $92,424 over the 2023-25 biennium to reclassify 2 positions in the Bureau of Corrective Actions as recommended by the governor, contingent on the approval of the reclassification from the Division of Human Resource Management.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luna. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that the subcommittee recommend approval of additional revenue totaling $92,424 over the 2023-2025 biennium to reclassify 2 positions in the Bureau of Corrective Actions as recommended by the governor, which would be contingent upon approval of the reclassification from the Division of Human Resources Management.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna, again for the record. Major closing issue number 3 recommends reserve reductions to fund additional public education grants to enhance solid waste management systems and promote sustainability throughout the state. During the budget hearing, the agency indicated that the grants support smaller groups to enhance public education concerning recycling and infrastructure enhancements to enable jurisdictions to collect and transport materials for recycling. Fiscal staff notes, as submitted, the executive budget includes base grant expenses of $1,750 in each year, and this recommendation would increase expenses to $16,750 in fiscal year 2024 and $31,750 in fiscal year 2025. According to the agency, the amounts in this recommendation were calculated assuming existing grant expenses of $36,660 in the base budget, and total annual grant expenses of $65,000 are requested from the agency. In order to fund the agency's expected need in the upcoming biennium at the $65,000 level per year, an adjustment to the decision unit would be necessary to increase grant expenses in this decision unit to $63,250 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium, funded with reserve reductions for total annual authority of $65,000 for grant expenses. So the decision for the subcommittee at the bottom of page 34, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of additional reserve reductions of $15,000 in fiscal year 2024 and $30,000 in fiscal year 25 as recommended by the governor? And does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of additional reserve reductions totaling $48,250 in fiscal year 2024 and $33,250 in fiscal year 2025 to provide funding of $65,000 in each year of the 2023-2025 biennium to fund additional grants to promote sustainable materials management?
Thank you very much. Members, any questions on this? Senator Goycochea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, this is reserve reductions, and I'm just trying to look here and see just exactly where we are, what the reserves look like. They look significant, so I think that'll be okay. Just making sure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Members, any additional questions or comments? And again, this adjustment is just aligning with the goals that were submitted in the executive budget. All right, seeing none, I accept a motion.
Chair, I would move that the subcommittee recommend approval of additional reserve reductions of $15,000 in fiscal year 2024 and $30,000 in fiscal year 2025 as recommended by the governor, as well as recommend approval of additional reserve reductions totaling $48,250 in fiscal year 2024 and $33,250 in fiscal year 2025 to provide funding of $65,000 in each year of the 2023-2025 biennium to fund additional grants to promote sustainable materials management.
Thank you. I have a motion from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna for the record. The fourth and final major closing issue for this budget recommends fees transferred in from the hazardous waste management budget to conduct a multi-season waste characterization study, which according to the agency would identify opportunities to increase the recycling rate in the state, particularly how the study would address some of the data gaps identified by the Partners for a Sustainable Nevada stakeholder group. The bottom of page 35 is the decision for the subcommittee. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of a total of $300,000 over the 2023-25 biennium funded with transfers from the hazardous waste management budget to conduct a waste characterization study as recommended by the governor?
Thank you very much. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair Watts, I would move that the subcommittee recommend approval of a total of $300,000 over the 2023-2025 biennium funded with transfers from the hazardous waste management budget to conduct a waste characterization study as recommended by the governor.
I have a motion from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna, again for the record. There are 9 other closing items for this budget, including one technical adjustment to remove expired grant authority from the base budget. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 8 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 9 be closed with the noted technical adjustments, and requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Chair Watts, I would move that other closing items 1 through 8 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 9 be closed with the noted technical adjustments, and that staff be granted authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will now begin, Justin Luna for the record, I will now begin presenting the budgets for the committee, or which the committee has not previously reviewed for the Division of Environmental Protection, and for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations. I will pause following my presentation of each budget to allow for questions. When I have presented the last budget in this group, and questions have been addressed, the chair may wish to ask for a single motion for closing consideration on all of the budgets for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations, as shown on the final page of the closing packet. We'll continue on page 39 with the Division of Environmental Protection Administration Budget 3173. The administration budget supports the administrative needs of the division, including the division's personnel, information technology, and accounting and fiscal staff. The budget is funded by an indirect cost assessment charged to the various DEP budgets. Federal Department of Energy grant is also administered in this budget. The majority of the grant funding is passed through to other DCNR budgets where the actual work is performed. There are no major closing issues. There are 10 other closing items. all recommended to be funded with reserve reductions, including one budget amendment received from the Governor's Finance Office on March the 4th, 2023, to add one new IT Technician 4 position, along with associated operating costs. As a reminder, closing recommendations for this budget and other staff closed budgets are included on the summary page at the end of the closing packet. Any questions on this budget?
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna for the record. Page 41 is the industrial site cleanup budget, 3175. The Bureau of Industrial Site Cleanup is responsible for oversight of the assessment and cleanup of historical hazardous releases from 5 major industrial sites that comprise the Black Mountain Industrial Complex near Henderson, Nevada. There are no major closing issues. There are 10 other closing items, all funded with a combination of fees and transfers in from the hazardous waste management budget. Any questions on this budget?
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next budget.
Thank you. Justin Luna for the record. Page 43 is the water pollution control budget, 3186. The Bureau of Water Pollution Control ensures compliance with federal and state water pollution control laws by issuing permits to discharge wastewater, inspecting facilities, and reviewing designs of wastewater treatment plants and infrastructure. There are no major closing issues. There are 3 other closing items funded with federal grants, fees, and reserve reductions. Any questions on this budget?
Thank you, Mr. Luna. Any questions, members? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next budget.
Thank you. Justin Luna again for the record. Page 45 is the mining regulation and reclamation budget, 3188. The Bureau of Mining Regulation and Reclamation ensures the design, construction, operation, closure, and reclamation of mining operations are carried out in accordance with state law and in a manner that protects public health. The budget is funded with fees paid by the mining industry. There are no major closing issues. There are 9 other closing items, all funded with reserve reductions, including one technical adjustment recommended by staff to remove duplicate positions, or to remove one duplicate position that was added during the interim, and also one budget amendment received from the Governor's Finance Office on March the 4th, 2023, to add one new environmental scientist 3 position, along with associated operating costs. Any questions on this budget?
Thank you very much, Mr. Luna. Members, any questions on this one? Seeing none, we'll go to the next budget.
Thank you. Justin Luna again for the record. Page 49 is the state revolving fund admin budget, 3189. The state revolving loan programs provide low-cost financing for wastewater and drinking water infrastructure improvements. The budget is funded primarily with federal grants. There are no major closing issues. There are 8 other closing items funded with a combination of federal funds and reserve reductions, including one technical adjustment recommended by staff to remove funding for 2 duplicate positions that were added during the interim. Any questions on this?
Members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Luna again for the record. Page 53 is the Water Quality Planning Budget, 3193. The Bureau of Water Quality Planning implements programs to meet the requirements of the Federal Clean Water Act, as well as Nevada's water quality statutes and regulations. The budget is primarily funded with federal grants and budgetary transfers. There are no major closing issues. There are 7 other closing items funded primarily with federal funds. Any questions?
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you. Justin Luna for the record. Page 55 is the Safe Drinking Water Program, budget 3197. The Bureau of Safe Drinking Water ensures Nevada's public water systems comply with the state and federal drinking water standards. This budget is primarily funded with federal grants, various fees, and budgetary transfers. There are no major closing issues. There are 4 other closing items, including 1 technical adjustment recommended by staff to remove 2 duplicate positions added during the interim. Any questions?
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next budget.
Thank you, sir. Justin Luna for the record. Page 59 is the State Environmental Commission, Budget 4149. State Environmental Commission serves as the primary rulemaking, variance, and appeal body for environmental regulations in Nevada. Funding for this budget is provided through administrative fines and transfers from various other DEP budgets and the Department of Motor Vehicles Pollution Control budget. There are no major closing issues. There are 2 other closing items. Any questions?
Members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to our last budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna for the record. The final DEP budget begins on page 61. The water planning capital improvement budget, 4155, excuse me. The water planning capital improvement budget funds the administrative expenses of the Board for Financing Water Projects, which awards grants for capital improvements to small public water systems to ensure compliance with state and federal drinking water regulations. This budget is funded primarily with bond proceeds and reserves and administration fees. There are no major closing issues, and there are no other closing items.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luna. Well done. Members, are there any questions on this budget or any of the others? I know we went through them quickly, but this is your last chance. All right. Seeing none, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Luna to walk us through the decision.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Luna for the record. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations for the following budgets. To assist with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budgets that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor, along with identified technical adjustments that are recommended below. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budgets be closed as recommended by the governor with the noted technical adjustments and budget amendments, and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. Budget 101-3173 DCNR DEP Administration, including approval of budget amendment A 231373-173 to add 1 new position. Budget 101-3175 DCNR DEP Industrial Site Cleanup. Budget 101-3186 DCNR DEP Water Pollution Control. Budget 101-3188 DCNR DEP Mining Regulation Reclamation, including approval of budget amendment A 231443-188 to add 1 new position, as well as the noted technical adjustment to remove a duplicate position. Budget 101-3189 DCNR DEP State Revolving Fund Admin, including the noted technical adjustment to remove the transfer of funds related to duplicate positions. Budget 101-3193 DCNR DEP Water Quality Planning. Budget 101-3197 DCNR DEP Safe Drinking Water Program, including the noted technical adjustment to remove duplicate positions. Budget 101-4149 DCNR DEP State Environmental Commission. And finally, budget 101-4155 DCNR DEP Water Planning Capital Improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Luna. Chair Harris?
Thank you, Chair Watts. I would move that the subcommittee recommend that the budgets just read by staff be closed as recommended by the governor with the noted technical adjustments and budget amendments, as well as give staff authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. I have a motion from Chair Harris, a second from Vice Chair Anderson. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. That motion carries. All right, thank you, members. 15 budgets up and down, closer to closing this budget, and in about an hour. Well done. That brings us to the last item on our agenda today, which is public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment, we'll ask you to limit your remarks to 2 minutes, and please clearly state and spell your name before beginning. Those wishing to provide public comment by phone can find that information on our agenda, which is also posted on the legislature's website. With that, do we have anyone wishing to make public comment here in Carson City or in Las Vegas? Please come forward. Seeing no one at this time, Broadcast Production Services, do we have anyone wishing to make public comment by phone?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
All right, thank you all very much for your time and attention today. We are adjourned.